What a lovely, beautiful fall day here in Chicago. It's about 68 degrees or so. Anyway, yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. In today's video, we are just doing a quick look at the Zipp 303S wheel set. I'm very fortunate that I'm able to basically borrow these wheels for a little while, just so I can give you some of my thoughts on these wheels. This is not going to be a full-on review, but I just wanted to see what these wheels are all about. Reason being is because these wheels here, the 303S, these are the third tier in the lineup of wheels that Zipp offers. So their top tier being the NSW, the middle tier, which is their Firecrest wheels, which I have reviewed. I'll put a link to that somewhere in this video. And then this is the third tier down, which is the S line. Now, what do you get with the S line? Well, for one, is the price on these are a little bit more affordable than the Firecrest, probably about $500 cheaper. That also means that there might be some compromises. So what we're going to do in this video, guys, is we're going to go over some of the specs on these 303S wheels. Of course, I'm going to give you the weights, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on these wheels, because as you guys know, with these 303S wheels, they are hookless. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so like I mentioned in the introduction, guys, these are the Zipp 303S line of wheels. The specs on these is they are steel spokes, steel bearings. The depth on these is 45 millimeters deep. They have a 23 internal width on them, and they are hookless. Now, in my previous video on the 404 Firecrest wheels, I did give you my thoughts on what basically how I feel about hookless wheels, but I will say that with hookless and these being tubeless, that does allow you to, of course, set these up tubeless, although I am running some inner tubes. However, the tires I'm using, which is these Continental GP5000 tubeless tires, the STR line, you do still need to run tubeless specific tires if you do plan to run tubes. And with these tires being 28 millimeters C, that does pump up the tire to about 30 centimeters or so. And then basically what that does is that allows you to run lower tire pressure. The joy of children laughing around you, these are the makings of you. Shout out to Curtis Mayfield, that is. Okay, let's go ahead and weigh out these Zipp 303S line of wheels. Now, keep in mind that the S line of Zipp wheels, as far as I know, these are the third tier of wheels that Zipp offers. So the NSW being their top tier, Firecrest being the second tier, and then the S line being the third. So that means that while these wheels should be about $500 cheaper than the Firecrest line of wheels, that also means that they probably are going to be a little bit heavier than the equivalent version of these in the Firecrest model. So let's go ahead and weigh out the rear wheel. Rear wheel on these 303S line of wheels, we have 825 grams. 825 grams. And let's weigh out the front wheel. Now this is with tubeless tape installed. We have 728 grams. So that gives us a grand total of 1,553 grams. So despite these being a shallower wheel than the 404 Firecrest wheels that I recently reviewed, these ones are not that much lighter, only by a couple of grams. So let's continue. Now, the whole purpose of running lower tire pressure is a couple of reasons. One is on a day like today where the roads and the trails are a little bit damp, that does mean that will offer you a little bit more comfort, a little bit more puncture protection. If you are doing some sort of racing, even though I don't race, or fast group rides where you're doing a lot of cornering, having a lower tire pressure will enable you to have a little bit more grip because you will have a wider contact patch when the rubber meets the road. Now, the retail price on the Zipp 303S wheels, I believe they're somewhere between $1,400 or $1,500 USD. So they are a fair bit cheaper than the line of Firecrest wheels that Zipp offers. And I think for someone who maybe doesn't want to make the jump just yet to Chinese branded affordable carbon wheels, and you do want to stick to one of the main manufacturers because you get a good warranty, you'll be able to service these wheels pretty well. These do make a compelling offer at $1,500. Now with these specific tires, or this tire size I should say, 28C tires, I'm actually running around 73, 74 PSI, which unfortunately is actually the maximum tire pressure that you can run according to the manufacturer specs on these wheels. So if you are on the heavier side, say like 85 or 80 kilograms and up, whatever the case may be, you may not be able to run 28C tires in order to get the recommended tire pressure for your size. So that means is you're gonna have to move up to something like a 30 or 32C tire. And this is one of my main gripes when it comes to hookless wheels. Sure, they might be cheaper to manufacture and you get all the comfort of running tubeless, but that basically isolates a large audience of riders who might be too heavy to run tubeless tires at 28C tires. Okay, now one of the main issues I had with those Zipp 404 Firecrest wheels that I recently talked about is, unfortunately, there was an issue with either the bearings or the amount of preload on the end caps, which caused a lot of bearing and wheel drag. And a lot of people commented saying that maybe they've put a lot of extra grease in the bearings or whatever the case may be. I don't really know, but compared to every single other wheel set that I've reviewed on this channel, I have not had that problem. So the good news is those 404 Firecrest wheels, they have been sent back to Zipp to investigate, to service, to figure out what the issue is. But with that being said, let's go ahead and do a quick spin test on these Zipp 303S wheels. Okay, now before I go through all the trouble of mounting tubes, rotors, all that stuff, let's go ahead and do a quick spin test on this front wheel, because as you guys had seen in my previous video on the Zipp 404 Firecrest wheels, there were some problems with the bearings or maybe the end caps, maybe affecting the preload on the through axles, whatever the case may be. But these those Firecrest wheels, they did not spin as easily as I thought that they would. And some of you guys in the comments weren't happy about that. And I did mention that it might just have been an isolated incident on my specific set of Firecrest wheels. But nonetheless, let's do a spin test on these right quick just to make sure everything is a-okay. Alrighty, so as you guys can see, these ones are spinning a lot more free than those 404 Firecrest wheels. I mean, I think those probably only span for about, I don't know, like 9 seconds. So obviously the bearings, the preload on the end caps, everything is working as they should be. All right. So let's continue. Freehub sound test on the Zipp 303S wheel set. Let's continue. Okay, so now that I've talked about the specs of these wheels, the price, the steel spokes, internal width, just my thoughts on tubeless wheels in general, let's go ahead and get these wheels out on the road so I can give you some of my on the bike impressions. Man, what a beautiful fall day, man. Unfortunately, by next week, it's gonna be like 40 degrees or maybe, what is that, like 2 or 3 Celsius, but unfortunately, this is basically the last few days of warm weather. So anyway, moving on to how I feel about these wheels. I like them. It's amazing how these wheels feel once basically the bearing situation has been sorted out and you actually have a nice set of free rolling bearings. But I like these wheels a lot. I think that they're very comfortable for what they are, and the price point is pretty good as well. I think $1,500 for these wheels, even though they are the third tier of Zipp wheels. I think there are a lot easier to digest as far as price goes. You know, you get the warranty as well. You get to be able to service these wheels locally. They are a proven set of wheels. They're very versatile with the internal width on them. Man, I look so dark. But yeah, you get the internal width on them, which allows you to be run these for gravel, for cyclocross, and they should be pretty bomb-proof. I mean, there's really no denying the comfort and grip that you get by being able to run lower tire pressure. For myself, like I said in my last video on my Firecrest wheels, I am not a believer of tubeless tires, especially hookless tires on the road, especially for the tire pressures that I like to run. I mean, all it takes is to basically get a puncture when you're cornering at 30 miles an hour into a corner, and then you get a puncture and sealant is spewing all over the place, and the tires come beat into the tire, or the rims, excuse me. I'm not trying to deal with that. I don't think that if you really want to use these wheels because they are so versatile, then just do what I did for these particular set of wheels. Basically just run tubeless tires and then just use latex inner tubes on the inside. That way, you won't have to deal with any of the mess. You can still use these wheels. Sure, it might add a little bit of extra weight, but at the end of the day, if you are running tubeless tires and you get a puncture that doesn't seal, you're gonna have to use inner tubes anyway. So to me, it just makes sense to just run tubes. But again, I understand that that's not what these wheels are for, but just for myself, I do like the wheels. I like the price point. Is it gonna make me a believer into running tubeless tires for the road? Absolutely not. I think for someone, if they only had one set of wheels or maybe even two, then I can understand where these would make a lot of sense, because yeah, they'll be very versatile. And yeah, a lot of people may not have the ability for various reasons to have a wide set of tires for every single road discipline. And so this is where I think that these wheels will make sense, especially if you are in a case where you are doing a lot of gravel, a lot of mud, because you're gonna have to service the hubs anyway. And so being able to service them easier, because they are a very popular wheel set, and you won't have to ship them back to China or anything like that, then I can understand why these wheels would make sense. Final thoughts on this video as we wrap it up. At $1,400 for the Zipp 303S wheels, they make a lot of sense to me. In fact, I would have to say, if I was going to pick a set of Zipp wheels today, these would probably be the ones that I would go with. At $1,400, a little bit more manageable as far as price goes. They're going to be very versatile as far as the wheel depth being at 45 millimeters deep. You'll be able to run these tubeless, and then with a 23 millimeter internal width, that means that that's going to plump up all of your tires to a wider width, which is going to offer a little bit more puncture protection, a little bit more comfort, as well as grip. So $1,400 for a pair of main brand wheels such as these, I think it's a pretty good deal, if I'm being honest. Now, they're not going to be the most budget-minded wheels that I've ever tested on this video. I still think that the Chinese brands are going to always be able to capitalize on that. But I also understand that there are a lot of people who, just for different reasons, don't want to deal with the hassle and some of the potential issues with Chinese branded wheels. But these would be the ones that I would go for, if I'm being honest. So until I can get my hands on a set of NSW wheels, which are going to be the all-out performance version, and again, most people don't really need that level of performance. Sure, they're gonna be a little bit lighter, maybe a higher quality of carbon, but for these being an all-around wheel that you can basically abuse and use in a variety of different road disciplines, these 303S wheels are probably the ones that I would go for myself if I was spending my own money. So that's gonna wrap up today's video, guys. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them down below, and I'm gonna check you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Man, it's windy. Peace.